Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I'm your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys awesome interviews, and today I have on the line with me Mr. Klaus Flouride from the awesome and legendary band, the Dead Kennedys. Klaus, how's it going, man?
Going as well as could be.
Well, that's good.
So how you doing? What's up?
You know, I'm happy that you're on here finally get you on here. I've been a fan of the Dead Kennedys for a very long time, and been a fan of you guys for a very long time, so thanks for you guys' music.
Sure, no problem.
All right, so you guys formed in 1978 in San Francisco.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you being labeled as one of the most popular and important American hardcore punk bands of the late 70s and early 80s?
Oh gosh, you flatter me. It's hard to explain. We just are, you know, and it's something that we worked towards, but we didn't set out at the beginning to become like a big, you know, iconic thing. We especially with the name, we thought we wouldn't get very many gigs and maybe last 6 months to 2 years, and with luck we'd get to go to LA once in a while or something. But, as it turns out, with a lot of good songwriting and collaboration and everything like that, and thinking around the same general political ideas and social ideas, and yet writing music that wasn't typical punk rock, i.e. it didn't sound like we didn't want to sound like you know, a Ramones knockoff or a Sex Pistols knockoff or, you know, another just standard punk thing. And we had a lot of influences, and so we just recorded what we liked to record, and we played gigs a long time before we got to record, or not terribly long time, but, you know, for a while. And things just grew, and the first album was really well received, and from there on we just kept going. And I'll tell you, there's a thing. When I was a kid growing up, I played guitar, and my dad, who instilled me with a sense of integrity and stuff like that, one of his things he kept telling me, though, is that there's 3 million boys out there, 3 million kids that play guitar. You know, get a backup plan. You know? But I kept playing, you know, and I'd been playing since I was 15, and I didn't get into the Kennedy. And when the Kennedy started, I was 29, and that's when I was, you know, in on the beginning of it. And so I've been playing for about 14 years already. And if I'd never done the Kennedys, I'd still be playing. But to watch what sort of mayhem was caused by our group and some of the craziness that goes on and things, I would be sometimes sort of like an automatic pilot and just watching this and taking it in and saying, this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I remember my dad saying that, and it plays over and over in my head. It's a really great honor in a way that many people like us, sure, and are influenced by it.
You know, you guys came up at a time when the punk and hardcore scene was just hitting just the tip of the iceberg before everything exploded
Right.
for that scene. So would you guys consider yourself more of a political band or the other? What's your take on that?
I think we're taken a lot by people as simply a political band, but it's more than that. I think a lot of it has to do with, well, for one thing, the music, and the other thing is it has to do with social interaction and this discussion about, I mean, songs like Man with the Dogs, which was the B-side of California Uber Alice, or I Kill Children, or stuff like that, where we caught hell for doing I Kill Children. and yet, if you listen to the middle 8 of the thing, the bridge, it goes inside this person's head, and it's about what causes a person to turn in that direction and go crazy in that sort of way, and what causes people to act in general antisocially or sociopathically or psychopathically. And so it's a lot of it is social comment, but social comment also is sort of, and it should be more so actually, than it is now. It should be what inspires politics, basically. I think not enough. We always were. The whole idea was anti-apathy about politics. If we weren't telling people what to think, we were just saying, here's what we've observed. What do you think of that? And take it out and work on your own. You're not going to get answers from us, because going to a punk rock band to find out the answers for your life and how to think is not it's not the best route. But it is a good thing if we opened up some minds and got some people to say, I'm curious about that. I'm going to go and look up some more stuff about that, or study that a little more, and things like that.
I want to jump ahead here just a little bit. I want to talk to you. I want your opinion about, you guys played your first gig in 78 as well, July 78. And that was at the, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right, but I know I probably ain't. It's the Mabuhay Gardens?
Mabuhay.
Yeah.
It's a Filipino word.
Okay.
I think it's Tagalog for celebration.
Okay.
Or celebrate, sort of. It was a Filipino supper club for a while, and then Dirk Dirksen convinced Ness Aquino, the owner of the club, to let him bring some bands into it. And that basically was one of the first venues that had punk rock in San Francisco on a regular basis. If not and certainly it was the grandfather of them all. And they supported us a lot. Dirk gave us a lot of gigs. And that first gig was we had about a 20-minute set. We were added on at the last minute. So there was I think 5 bands that night or something. We were at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And we had about a 20-minute set planned, I think. And I think we were so nervous it went by in about 12 minutes because we were playing it so fast.
Wow.
And then we got an encore, and for our encore, we just redid one of the songs, but we got an encore as an opening band, which was eye-opening in itself for us. And it was a good, encouraging way to start, and made sure that the people that were there knew we were on stage. Biafra was running around. There were tables and stuff set up at that point at the club, which sort of disappeared into the back of the club later, but at that point there were tables just up to maybe 5 or 10 feet from the stage. And people would have their beers on the table, and those were targets for Biafra to go over and pour somebody's pitcher of beer on them or something like that. Got their attention. We used that a couple of times, but we didn't have to always do that. Eventually things just got going on their own. So.
How was the scene and support from the fans that did follow you back in the 70s and 80s for that?
Well, the support, for one thing, from other bands is really fantastic. And the San Francisco scene was different than the New York scene, which was different than the LA scene. But there was no internet at the time, and there really kept in touch through finding other people's records in independent record stores, or there were magazines that sprung up like Maximum Rock and Roll. There were always early fanzines. But within San Francisco itself, there were so many different... It wasn't just hardcore at that point. There was artcore bands. There were new wave bands and stuff, and they'd all play on the same bill. So it wasn't just one band after another sounding the same, sort of. It was like, okay, you deal with this, then you deal with this, and you take it in its variety, But a group called the Offs, I think, really pushed for getting us on that first bill, and they were an early there were about 5 other people on the bill. All the other people on the bill were bands in San Francisco that were playing in punk venues before we were. I mean, we were sort of second generation. The Avengers had been around for about a year before we even started. A lot of stuff was going on, and it was supportive, and it was supportive from the audience and the other bands. Not so much by the authorities, but
Did you guys, Klaus, ever have problems getting any gigs because of the name The Dead Kennedys?
I'm sure there's a lot of people that didn't return our manager's phone calls or whatever, But once we started doing it, it pretty much picked up pace. We did our first tour to the East Coast just straight out to the East Coast. You could fly from San Francisco on World Airlines, I think it was at the time, and round trip for $100. And
Wow.
so we said, instead of doing a van, we're just going to fly over there and borrow equipment or whatever and rent a car or a van. We rented a van and did some shows. It was very poorly organized, and California Uber Ellis had just been released, but it hadn't gotten out there yet. And we came back, and there were shows where like 12 people were there, and pretty much hardly anybody knew who the hell we were. And we were sort of bummed when we got back. But we eventually got rallied together and picked it up again. It certainly didn't hurt that Biafra decided to run for mayor around that point, because there was a mayoral race going on with Dianne Feinstein, of all people, in it, and he actually got to run under his Jello Biafra name instead of his given name, and so therefore he also got equal airtime and everything like that, and had some stuff on his platform that was for laughs, and had some stuff that was rather serious, like the stuff for laughs was like let's make all the businessmen in the financial district have to dress like clowns. It'll make San Francisco a much jollier place for tourists. But he also had things like let's have the police run every 2 years for a vote of confidence by the neighborhoods that they patrol. And that would, because there is and there was a lot of police violence at that point, and there is still now, and that was a comment on that, basically. And he came in out of a field of 10, he came in fourth place and caused a runoff, which, of course, made all sorts of interesting news stories and things, and got us in the eye of people and then the interest of people. And at the same time, we were starting to record another album and had more songs and things, so it just sort of picked up after that.
What would you say your most favorite Kennedy's album is, if any, and plus favorite songs you like to play live?
Well, that vacillates. I listened to it different times. It's funny how many people think Bedtime for Democracy is their favorite album. And to me, it was recorded after we had already stopped performing live. We had agreed that we still had these songs that we had put together, and we wanted to put them on record. That it was sort of an agreement with each other that we do that to fill our own obligation to ourselves. And that's some people, that's their favorite album. And yet for me, because it was so fresh at the time and an exciting thing to do at the time, I liked Fresh Fruit. But I really liked the Live at the Def Club thing that we put out just recently. And that had been recorded back in 78 or 79, I can't remember which, before we'd really gone over. We were big enough in San Francisco and stuff, and we were playing that night with the Germs, and it was recorded, and it was a really good show, and we finally got to release it, and I like that one an awful lot because it's one of the better live albums that we've got. 2 live albums, and then there's so many bootlegs. I don't know. I like the live stuff a lot just because of the spontaneity of things and how we play the songs different than in the studio where we overdubbed a lot. And I mean, the funny thing about punk rock is that it was supposed to be all spontaneous and garage, And it's not garage like the Sonics were like garage. It's like by the time Sex Pistols were recording for Virgin, there are so many overdubs it's not even funny. There's walls of guitar in that thing, and the Ramones, I think, were pretty true to the standard of keeping it down to recording an album quickly and cheaply. And Fresh Fruit was done really quickly and cheaply, and very few overdubs. But as time got on, we wanted to make better and better records, and that seemed to somehow include making more and more complicated mixes and stuff like that. So I just like the more spontaneous stuff a little better.
I like Frankencross from you guys.
Yeah, I like that album too. I like Frankenchrist. I like Plastic Surgery Disasters.
Yeah, I'm kind of like the throwback guy. You know, I like the newer stuff, but to me, when I hear the band's first couple of albums, that seals it for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you see so many bands these days, Klaus, that just stray away from who they are, and it's like, wow, this album from when you first started sounds totally different to now. And, you know, to me, I think some has lost their way, and that's just, you know, that's my opinion.
Well, it's strange. I mean, for the most part, or for a good part of our set, what we do is a lot of the fresh fruit when we play live, and we still play live. And when we started, we didn't quite know what set to play, what songs to throw in. For one thing, when we restarted in 2002, it was like, or it might have been 2001, I'm not sure. But it was supposed to be a one-off gig just because of the release of Mutiny on the Bay. And it turned out that we played a very short set, and it was at a place where we were just supposed to do record signing and have a meet and greet thing. But we rehearsed a couple of times, real long rehearsals with Brandon Cruz, who was going to sing with us for that one night. And in the rehearsal space, people were coming by the door and listening, and pretty soon word got out that we were going to play at the Key Club in Los Angeles, and there was a line down the block, and it was a great response. So we then tried to figure out, how can we do a set list without just catering to what people want to hear, but still. So we picked some of our favorite songs, but we'd also have on the merch table a list saying, what songs would you like to hear them play next time they come through?
Yeah.
And the ones that were written down the most would work their way into the set, but not take over the set. And plus, we every once in a while threw some new ones that we were fooling around with, but haven't really gotten around to making the decent recordings of that we'd like to. So that's the long, slow process with our different lineups that we've had. We've had 3 singers since Biafra,
Yeah.
and Skip's been with us for a good long time now, and he's a bright guy and pretty good songwriter. Who knows? I'm never going to say never, because as far as putting out more material, and I'm never going to guarantee we are, because after we broke up originally in '86, I thought we'd never play again, and people in 1990 and 95 or something like that saying, when are you guys going to get back together? I said, when Armageddon hits or something like that. It wasn't going to happen. So, but it turns out we did get back together for the most part. So.
And like you said, Skip's done a phenomenal job for you guys.
Yeah, Skip's. Have you seen us with Skip?
Do what?
Have you seen us with Skip?
I've heard y'all play with him, but as far as actually seeing you guys, no.
You've gone to YouTube.
Yes.
You evil person, you. YouTube just doesn't, pay anybody but itself, basically. Even if it's monetized, they still take such a huge cut. But that's Ray's cause celebre right now is like the internet being fair to artists that they make lots of money off of.
Yeah.
And right now it's still not happening. There's no real logical control. There is lots of exposure, and that's the internet. The companies like Spotify and Pandora and all those things say, where else are you going to get the exposure that you get here? But, they make a fortune, literally a fortune. And it's no different, really, than it's just by a degree only different than Mega Upload was. The guy, Kim.com, with his, he had bots that would buy anything that went digital onto the internet, and he'd buy it legally, Mm-hmm. And then he'd put it online on his blog called Mega Upload. And he'd get 2 million hits a day after a while. And
Jeez.
So advertisers were, and he'd say, if the kids want to download stuff that they like on my blog, that's their business, I'm not doing anything illegal. They've been trying to extradite him to the States for a court because he's in New Zealand, but he's a billionaire. He can fight all he wants to with his lawyers. He's never going to get extradited, as far as I can see, and he's never going to see any justice for what he does. They closed down Mega Upload, and he started another one just called Mega or something like that. But he charged a premium for advertisers because the advertisers would pay a premium because when he was getting 2 million hits a day. So, and things like Spotify and Pandora and even to a degree YouTube are not that much more honest than he is as far as the amount of money they make. It's money worse than they used to as far as percentage than the old record labels in the 70s, when back in the 1930s and stuff, when they'd record old blues musicians and pay them, right, $10 or $15 for a record and then sell, thousands of them, and it's not much different than that. It's an indentured servitude sort of thing almost.
It is. It's pretty much almost a lost art.
It's really hard for musicians. It's getting harder for musicians, except for the very few, just like the 1% wealthiest people on the planet type deal, or the 2% or whatever you want to call. Most musicians are the 98%, where it's hard to make a living as a musician, period. And most of it's off. You have to do it through merchandising or touring, and those are about the only two ways to do it. Right now, releasing stuff or releasing vinyl, which is a way that makes it, invaluable if you have a recording of a vinyl record that you digitally uploaded. What the hell's the point, and stuff like that. So,
Klaus, what would you say your most memorable show has been with the Kennedys?
That would be really hard. There's shows that are memorable in so many different ways. I mean, we played little tiny halls in Walnut Creek, a suburb of San Francisco, back in the early 80s, late 70s it was. And the police came in and shut it down because it was just some kids running a show, and most people at that point had to pay off the right police, and the show wouldn't get shut down. But the cops came in while we immediately went into police truck, stuff like that, where it was just in their face. But at the same time, we played Bogota, Colombia, and government sponsored to keep the kids sort of happy. So it was a free concert, but it was a festival that went on for, I guess, 2 or 3 days. And there was 500,000 people.
Jeez.
And that was just mind-boggling. But I get more nervous. I get covered with sweat and nervousness if I'm playing for 20 people more than I do going out and playing for 500,000 and because that's just so abstract. You can see maybe the first 20 rows of people, and from there it just becomes like one of those little pointillism pictures, the little dots back there that are all sort of waving around. I mean, there was a hill, and the thing was very well organized. They had big Diamond Vision screens, and the sound was all the way through to the back, and the sound was literally delayed as it got back there, so it wouldn't be all sorts of bad echoey sounds. Somebody that organized it did a really good job, but that was a high in a different sort of way. It's probably the highest place we ever played, and that Bogota is pretty much about a half a mile higher up than Denver or something like that. And there was Red Cross at the side of the stage administering oxygen for people who needed it.
Oh my God!
Yeah, it was pretty different. And then there's like the first time we played in the UK and Berlin and stuff like that, where it was we broke there in a big way earlier than we did when we came back from our first European tour. Is when United States clubs and cities and bunkers sort of really stood up and paid attention, or people that weren't just bunkers. The people who used to drive by and go, punk rock, or DeVoe at you if you looked anything outside of, normal jockey footballer type looks. So, yeah, I'm rambling now, though.
No, you're fine. You're fine, man. It's cool to hear old school stories like that. I mean, it really is, because I would like to have seen a lot of old concerts from the 70s and 80s, because It just seems like they were more out there and more fan related.
Well, there are some videos that exist from that period, mostly done by Target Video, which has nothing to do with the Target store chain. It was a guy named Joe Reese and a few other people helping him out that were in his little crew that filmed stuff from basically the mid-'70s on in, and with really crude, what you had for recording equipment at that point was black and white half-inch tape on reel-to-reel on Sony Portapacks or something, and to get that, the visuals and the sound good together was a really tough thing to do on a low budget, and yet he managed to do a lot of that. So there's a lot of stuff that if you see on the internet that's credited to Joe Reese or Target Video, that's stuff that's a good picture of what things were like at the beginning, the punk rock thing, and also there are things that if you look at it on YouTube again, Joe Reese makes not a penny off of that probably. So it's interesting. It's fine to look at YouTube, I think, but it's crazy to post YouTube because it, if you see a video that you like and you want to share it with a friend, email it to the friend. Posting it on Facebook is like giving this person's art to how many other, if say you have 300 friends or something like that, if you have that many. And those and 50% of them really decide to like it, and they post it, and on. And you can see how quickly that can expand.
Oh yeah, and I see people on there every day posting videos and things like that, and some post 4 and 5 different videos a day. I'm going, really?
Yeah, I know, and it's. I used to do that until I realized the monetary setup for the whole thing, and that it's not that we're just after money. Exposure is nice and everything like that, but it's also nice to get paid for your art. It's like, say somebody goes into a wine store or a liquor store and says, "This is a really good bottle of wine here. I've had this stuff at a party once. My God, this is great," and picks it up and walks out of the store with it without paying for it because they liked it. Well, somebody made that wine.
Yeah.
And that wine's not going to last you nearly as long as some music that somebody made and put their sweat and toil into. And yet, taking the music is considered, again.
For you guys, Klaus, what's it mean from back in the day and plus even today, fans emailing you guys and saying that, hey, look, your music has helped me through tough times. It's pulled me through a dark hole, and plus it's gave me inspiration. What's it still mean to you guys?
It means the world. The fact that we've helped some people through hard times, anybody through hard times, is amazing. And it's like 3 generations that come now, it seems like. People bring their grandchildren. Mm-hmm. Their grandchildren are, teenagers, and these guys have been following us since 78 or something. And they have grandchildren. They're bringing to their first punk rock show or something like that. And we always go out and do, meet people after we play and sign stuff and take selfies with people and stuff and talk because we want to meet the people that have come to see the show and sort of, show that we're real.
Yeah. And I think, the band should do that. I mean, the fans put you guys there,
Yeah, that's the choice of the band. And then I think it says a little bit about a band, whether or not they choose to do that. It's exhausting if you put on a show, and some bands play for, 2.5, 3 hours. Some people, and I can understand them not going out, and I can't understand them playing 2.5 or 3 hours for that matter. I don't want to watch anybody. I don't care who it is play for 3 hours, or 2.5 hours, or whatever. But I can see them being so thoroughly exhausted and just wanting to get back, have some food, go to bed, and do it again tomorrow.
20 minutes and I'm done.
Yeah, but I think it's nice to recognize people who recognize you, basically.
This is my last question for you here, Klaus. What would you like to see change in the music industry?
Well, the industry is such an evil word anyhow, I think, calling it the industry. The music scene, or in music in general, or even the music business is better than the music industry. It's like I love spiritualism and the idea of spiritualism, but religion and organized religion and what people bend it to get their dirty deeds done is different than what spiritualism is. You can take Islamic State, for instance, and just say, look at how they interpret religion and to their own uses to do stuff that's not quite kosher,
True.
let's say,
True.
to throw ideas against each other. What do I think? I think it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of pressure and a lot of evolving ideas for people to realize that musicians and artists, because it's a visual art thing too, are facing a whole new world because of the internet, because of stuff over the internet, and things need to be redefined and just plainly defined and made into law, just like they were back in the early days of when records first start to come out, and back then all there was is sheet music for pianos for people to play the songs and the pianos at home, and publishing was everything. And now publishing is becoming very important again, as far as somebody being rewarded for their work. And that all changed up when records first came out, and performers had to fight for their right to get some sort of something for singing on a record that made it a hit. And I know, because I have 78s. I have thousands, literally, of 78s, and I have tons of vinyl, and I followed it closely. I'm not all that business-wise and savvy about it, but I think there will always be new people forming bands, and I think there will always be clubs supporting them, and people supporting them, and live shows to go to, and things like that. And I think things constantly move forward. The punk rock is dead is a crazy concept, as much as when people said rock and roll is just a fad, it's going to pass. Rock and roll, in one form or another, this new music is just as viable as anything. And also, you got to keep in mind that with any sort of art form or music form, it's like a pyramid where there's the original 5 or 10% of the stuff at the very top of it that's interesting and new, and then there's another maybe 20% under that sort of patterns itself after it and does good and eventually sometimes even better treatments of the idea, and then from there on down there's a lot of crap, and but it's like that with music and with art. And the thing is, the top few people always that start something are always the one that generally pretty much get ignored at first too, until people refer back to them from that next 20% level I was talking about. That's my little pyramid, not a pyramid scheme, just a vision of a way to sort of explain the thing as I see it. But I think if you're not just straight out, plagiarizing or ripping somebody off, you should be, and people like it and like it enough to pay to see a show. If they pay to see a show, then they're saying right there that it's got some value. And if it's got value, then the records must have value too, unless the records are just shitty.
I agree.
But then still, if it's just shitty, why do you want it?
Yeah.
If it's something that you have value, that you're going to listen to in your car, in your house, or in your iPod, and your phone, whatever, it's got value to you, then the people who produced it should. I'm not trying to just stand here on a little platform and say, we want more money. It's just that we want to be able to make a living just like any other person that's decided to try and do it. And we are lucky enough to, for the most part, not to have day jobs. And I never thought that would happen and last that long for me. But the day job is every day, actually, of keeping aware. And right now, this is part of my day job, talking to you. But I don't mind it because I enjoy my day job. And
yeah.
Because it's part of my job.
So how can people stay in touch with you guys, and especially you? How can they buy your merchandise or the Dead Kennedys? How can they do that, Klaus?
Okay, well, Dead Kennedys specifically have deadkennedys.com. There's that. You can go to that. I believe there's a place there that takes you to the merch I myself have KlausFlouride.com. It's a www, you know, the standard thing. It's KlausFlouride, where I do my own stuff. You can get in touch with us through that. The Facebook pages where you can inquire about where you get things. But yeah, I mean, Dead Kennedys has its own .com and is fairly well, attended, and we list when we're going to be playing someplace and stuff like that. Well, we're going to be playing some shows starting in January in Southern California and Nebraska. Yes, January in Nebraska. That's what we're going for, folks.
Wow. Bundled up good.
Yeah. But there's a festival in Nebraska that's happening, and I think it's January 10th, and it's like 6 punk bands, Misfits, and some other people. So, and we're going to be playing some Southern Californias before that. And we just got back from Australia, and we don't tour as long as we used to for a tour because we wouldn't want to go to a show that we wouldn't want to see, and we're not 25 years old and 30 years old anymore. So we know our limitations as far as where we start to run out of energy, basically. It starts to wear on us. And we don't want to go out there haggard and not do a show. So we're touring like 2.5, 3 weeks at a time now, and then taking a month and a half off, and then maybe doing another 2 weeks and things like that. Different regional tours, little short regional tours. But it works for us, and it works for the people, and we're still playing, which is a blessing. I hate when it's used in a Christian sort of way, but it is a good thing to have happen to you.
Klaus, before I let you go, will you care to do a promo for my show?
Sure. Hi, this is Klaus Flouride, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody, stick around. We got some music coming up from the Dead Kennedys, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and Uber City Radio. Klaus, I want to thank you guys and the Dead Kennedys for all your music and everything that you've done for the music world. Thank you so much, man. Okay, well, thank you for having me on and representing the guys and putting in a pitch for myself. And we'll see you soon, hopefully. You're very welcome, man. Okay, take care now.